Hello and welcome to Blue Army TV. I'm sitting here after Carlisle have been beaten 3-2 away from home at Cheltenham in a result that didn't matter in the end. We'd have been relegated either way, but look, we're not here to talk about the game today, are we? Or even the Tranmere game. The news story coming out today is the fact that we have been relegated out of the Football League for the first time. It's the first time I can remember, the first time in my time supporting Carlisle. Obviously, there's been a big reaction on social media. It's quite poetic, the way that the Tranmere goal that ultimately killed any kind of hope was scored by Christian Dennis, assisted by Omari Patrick. Two players who weren't good enough for Carlisle, apparently. Two players I would absolutely kill to have in our team at the minute. But, yeah, it's just... things are dire. Things are so dire at this club at the minute. And... It's less disappointing because I almost felt like this was going to happen a while ago. We got a bit of hope back with that kind of run of wins. But it didn't happen in the end. And the question is, what caused this? What was the moment that killed us this season? What's the reason for us going down? And while recruitment does play a big part in it, and I think the recruitment has been absolutely dire, and to be quite frank, it's been dreadful. It's been embarrassing from everyone involved. Greg Abbott, the whatever managers were in charge at the time, we're on our third. I'm not going to include Hughes in that, but you know what I mean. You met Paul Simpson, Mike Williamson, and obviously there's Rob Clarkson as well, who obviously has to take a lot of blame. But the maths is the maths, Mr. Clibbins. We've been relegated. If you want to talk about maths, let's talk about maths. Let's talk about numbers. Let's talk about the millions that we're spending. Almost 2 million more is our wage budget than the second team behind us in that table. So let's talk about the maths. The maths is the maths. We're paying our players more. And you look at the table, you look at our points, the maths is the maths. We are where we are because we don't have as many points as the teams above us, It's a statement that really annoyed me at the time, and it's a statement that's coming back now, but the maths is the maths. We pay more than anybody else, we have more players than anybody else, and we have less points than nearly everybody else, with Morecambe only just being as terrible as us. But of course, you'd kind of expect that with them having to sign an entirely new squad in the summer and being under lots of financial restrictions, paying their squad a lot less than most people in this league, and they were favourites to go down. And look, these players, we're probably going to get stuck with them for a while, and even some players have had a slight revival in this last kind of part of the season. And I mean Georgie Kelly, I mean the lot of them. I mean, if their contract is up at the end of this season, let them go. It's that simple. Because I think Kadeem Harris would do fantastic in the National League for somebody. But my idea with this isn't that it's not about the quality of the players. It's about I want as much of the negativity around this relegation and the one before it. I want as much of that out of the club as possible. So that includes Kadeem Harris. If your contract's up at the end of this season, I would like us to look for that quality elsewhere. And I mean Harris, I mean Dennis, and I mean who else is out of contract? Quite a few. There's a few, and all of the loans going back as well. I don't want to see them again, because they've all played a part in this relegation. The only player I'd maybe exempt from that is Gabriel Breeze, potentially Jack Ellis. Players that have come through the youth academy that have, you can tell they've put everything into it. And obviously, Gabriel Breeze made a mistake today for their second goal. But if you think we're getting relegated because of Gabriel Breeze, then I don't really know what to tell you. Look, the big thing this season that's ultimately killed us is Mike Williamson. And I don't mean that we sacked him too late, I mean the appointment in the first place was stupid. It felt like a board that didn't expect us to be in this kind of situation, and almost in denial of the situation we were in at the time. We were in a relegation battle. I don't think we were in the relegation zone, but we were that side of the table under Simpson. So we got rid of a relegation survival specialist in Simo, and yes, he had his part to play in getting us there. I think the club almost put far too much pressure on him by making him the main man in every single department. He was manager, he was head of, he was the director of football. He made a lot of decisions behind the scenes that maybe he shouldn't have been put in charge of, but ultimately he had a big part to play in our downfall. But I think we'd stayed up with him. The appointment of Mike Williamson was poor because we didn't go about it right. We thought we'd signed a director of football that we hadn't. He'd suggested Mike Williamson, and I know they say this isn't true, but it is. Let's be completely honest, it is true. Then we paid a lot of money for him from a club who was, I'd say, 2, maybe 3 weeks away from sacking him anyways. So we paid big money to get him in. And we had a manager trying to play Pep Guardiola style football at the bottom of League 2, and everyone could see it wasn't working. And he absolutely destroyed the club. He brought in lots of players on massive wages. He bought an entirely new team for us then to sack him before the transfer window was even done. Which, let's be honest, I'm not going to say that we shouldn't have sacked him. I'm saying we should have sacked him a lot earlier, and at the very start we probably shouldn't have appointed him. Go back and watch these videos from the start. I wasn't really happy with that appointment in the first place. It wasn't what we needed. It feels like a very inexperienced board trying to just play Football Manager, going, oh, we'll play nice passing football and that'll make us good, or we'll play good football and that'll make us good. That's what it felt like. Look, I'm not going to blame Hughes because I think he was a smart appointment. He was a smart appointment at the wrong time. He should have been brought in a lot sooner. And ultimately, the results have been better under him than anybody else. But the only problem is it was too late. He got us back-to-back wins for the first time in nearly 2 years, nearly 100 games. And then he got 3 wins back-to-back, which was unheard of. And he delayed the inevitable. We're closer to safety now than we were when he came in. We're what was it? What is it now? It's 6 points, I think. It doesn't matter. But going into this game, we were 4 points outside of safety. I'm to be honest, I'm just gutted because I'm not just gutted that we've been relegated. Obviously, that does play a big part, but I'm so gutted that we're going to have to watch a lot of these players next season. And by that, I mean George Kelly. For that, I mean, who else do I mean? Embleton. I mean, pretty much all of them, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I don't know how many are out of contract at the end of this season. I know there's a couple. There's not as many as I would like. There's a lot of players going into the last year of their deal this year. But yeah, some big changes need to happen. I would get rid of as many as possible, no matter who. I think, I mean, even the players that I think have been fairly decent signings, like Whelan, like Dennis, like Harris, I think I just want as much of this season out as we can, because look, they've been relegated with the club. We kept the majority of our players when we got relegated last season to try and keep the squad together, and all that managed to do was keep a kind of expectation of getting beat. We kept that in the team, and I don't want to bring that down another division. And next season, when we're in the National League, which is now mathematically confirmed, I don't want to hear about promotion. I don't want the Piatex to come out and say, oh, I want us to be aiming for the top of the league next season, because I've heard it last season. I don't care, and I don't believe it, to be perfectly honest. There's a lot better teams in the league below us than us. There's better players, and you know what? There's players with better mentality that want to win, better than the players that we're going to be stuck with next season. Let me get that into people's heads. We're going to be stuck with the majority of this team next season because they're all on stupidly high wages, so nobody's going to take them off us, and they're all on stupidly long contracts. So, if we were to get rid of them, we'd have to pay up the rest of their contract, which, I mean, look, just think of Jordan Jones as an example. I think he's got what? If we were to pay up his contract, it would cost us something like £1 million. Same with Embleton. And you think of the players we've got that haven't even featured this year that are going to be in the squad. I almost feel like it might be worth, well, not worth, because we need to sign a lot of players next season, but we're going to have a stupidly big squad because we're going to have all the lot that we're stuck with from this season as well. Maybe there'll be a couple that agree to mutually, they'll release themselves. They'll agree to leave on a free to, mutually assured contract termination or whatever you want to call it. Maybe they'll agree to leave on a free. For pride, more than anything, maybe they'll think that they can play at a higher level. Not that I think many of them care about much more than the wages we're paying them. But, I mean, look at the back line today. Look at the back line. I mean, Harper was poor, Hayden was poor, and Terrell Thomas, I don't know what's happened to him since he came back from his injury. And that's a theme that needs to drop. We need to stop buying players that are coming out from the end of their contract, that are coming back from an injury. I mean, there's too many of those players that we bought players while they've been injured. Let's keep that in mind when we think of the likes of Georgie Kelly, who, I don't care if he scored a few goals in the last few games and he scored again today. I mean, we bought him in League One, and the only goals he's scored have been at the back end of this season, which weren't enough to keep us up. Georgie Kelly has been a failed signing. I want people to realise that, because there's been a lot of positivity around the Georgie Kelly signing recently, because he's come in, and I agree he's a good player. I think he's a fantastic striker, but he's been a failed signing. He's been a complete failure. He didn't play at all in our League One campaign, and now that we're in League Two, he hasn't really played anything until it's too late with Kelly. And I just, it's so frustrating, the level of incompetence that's been at this club. And that's the big thing. It's incompetence. And it's a failure rooted right at the bottom. From the top to the bottom of this club, it's rooted in incompetence and failure. And I want the vast majority of not just these players, but I want things to change at the top of the club. I don't want hipster, tiki-taka, good football playing people at the top of the club that think that we can be the next Brighton or Bournemouth. I want to focus on being the next Grimsby first. I want to focus on being the next stable League 2 club. That's my aim. There was talks of the Championship when these owners first came in. I don't want that anymore. Obviously I love it, but all I want at the minute, the aim doesn't have to, it isn't the Championship, and it shouldn't even be to get promoted to League 2. The main priority this year, stop thinking you can just bounce back from leagues. The main priority in this summer needs to be staying in the National League. That's what I want. That's what I'm hoping for next season. Because, it's very possible that we could turn into a Scunthorpe. Very, very possible. And not for the same reasons as Scunthorpe went bust. Scunthorpe, well, like I said, they went bust. We're at danger of sleepwalking out of this league. Sleepwalking out of the Football League. I've never known us be a non-league club. We'll be a professional because we'll be a professional club because we're paying our players professional wages. But we're not in a professional league. We're not in the Football League. Think of the money we'll lose going into the National League. Think of the unsustainable way that this football club's going to have to be run next season. We're going to be paying players Championship level wages in the National League. Money coming into this club is going to be nowhere near the money that we're paying to the players. To the players alone, never mind transfer fees, never mind players we bring in the summer. Next season, we're running so unsustainably as a football club, and I like the Piatex, but let's just say that something happens. Let's just say, and I know this isn't, well, I hope this isn't going to happen, but let's just say something happens in America and they have to pull out of Carlisle United. The club will go bust. It's been run like a rich kid's toy. They're just putting money into it and there's no sustainability at all. Whatsoever, there's no sustainability because we're spending so much money on these wages. We needed to stay in League 2 for the sustainability of this football club and just to ensure the future of Carlisle United. This isn't us going down and, we're just in a lower league. This has such big consequences, so huge, because just for money. We're not in the professional league. We're not a football league club anymore. And to be quite frank, we don't deserve to be. The players aren't good enough. The way the football club's been run over the last couple of years hasn't been good enough. We don't deserve to be a football league club. Money-wise, I suppose money put into the club, and, let's be honest, in football, money sometimes, or most of the time, if spent well, leads to success, but it hasn't been spent well. We've spent money on I'm not going to congratulate you for spending money if you're spending money, if you're overspending on crap, because that's what we've done. We've we've signed some horrendous footballers. Jordan Jones, Embleton, Josh Vella. My God, I mean, all players that we paid a transfer fee for. Jesus, you can get far better than that in the free agent market. You can get far better than that in the free agent market in the National League. I think Josh Vella's contract might be up at the end of this season. And, the way Hughes seems to think about him, I wouldn't be surprised if we offer him a renewal, but look, things need to change. If you can afford it, pay off a lot of these players. If you can't, try and convince them that it's in their best interest to leave, which career-wise it would be. Short-time monetarily, it probably isn't a good idea for those players to leave because of the wages they're on at Carlisle, and players will see, clubs will see the way that they've just finished the season at Carlisle. They'll see what's happened this season. The football world is watching, and they will not want any player that's had anything to do with it today, not just today, but this season. Do you think people are going to want Elliot Embleton? Do you think people are going to want Charlie Wyke? Do you think people are going to want Jordan Jones? Do you think people are going to want Aaron Hayden? Do you think people are going to want Terrell Thomas, Archie Davis, Cameron Harper, Harry Lewis? Clubs aren't going to want these players. We're stuck with them. And it's heartbreaking because there was such a lot of positivity, and I almost feel like people were too positive just because they wanted something different when these new owners came in, and I'm guilty of that. I bigged them up more than anyone, but it's been a failure. The Carlisle United project over the last couple of years has been an absolute failure, and I think that's epitomised by the Mike Williamson appointment. It was incompetent from start to finish, that era, and he's probably the worst manager Carlisle have ever had. In fact, I'll factually say that he is the worst manager Carlisle's ever had. Things need to change. There will be a video for the Salford game, but to be honest, I'm debating not going because why would you? We're going to get beat. There's nothing to play for. And next week, I don't want to see any of the loanees playing. As good as Fuse has been the last few games, I don't want to see him playing. I don't want to see Hugill in the squad. I want to see players that we know for a fact are going to be here next year. I want to see, hopefully, Breeze and Nets. And the rest, just play. If you don't have the players, play youth players. It's that bad. I don't want to see players that aren't going to be here next season being wasted on what is going to be our last professional game of football for quite possibly a good number of years, a good number of seasons, because talks of promotion next year, I just don't want to hear it, because we heard it all last year. We're going to put money in, we're going to sign fantastic players, and we're going to get promoted. Didn't happen. We got relegated again. What I want to see next season is stability. Stability as a National League club. Reduce the player wages by a significant amount, if possible, and stabilise, because until you can't. It's very difficult when you're falling down as a football club to turn that around and immediately go back up. On the decline, just try and stop the decline. That's all I want. Try and stop the downward spiral. That's what I'm asking. I don't want to hear about a straight back up job. I don't want to hear about a promotion chase next season, because I just won't believe it. I won't believe it from anyone at the club. Stability, that needs to be the aim next year. Mid-table stability. Maybe we get into the playoffs. There's quite a lot of playoff places in that league, and hopefully we can do what Simo did when he came down and fluke our way through the playoffs. Not to say that season was a fluke, but you get my meaning. Disappointing. Wouldn't have mattered what we did today. Just this season's been so poor. It's been horrific being a Carlisle fan this year. Really bad. See you next week, and see you in the National League. That's all, folks. In a bit.